Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Okay, so today we're talking about something pretty amazing. The connection between, well, what we eat and our brains.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Absolutely. And we're going to be talking about the work of Dr. Georgia Ede.
Oh, yeah, she's doing some really groundbreaking stuff.
For sure, she's a Harvard-trained psychiatrist,
Mm.
but she's working in like this brand new field. It's called nutritional and metabolic psychiatry.
It's really cutting edge.
It is, and it's crazy to think that what we eat can like actually impact our mental health.
Oh, absolutely. It can totally transform your life just, by changing what you eat. It's pretty powerful.
Really is. So, I think a good place to start is maybe with Dr. Eade's own like personal health journey.
Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of practitioners in this field, they actually discover the power of nutrition kind of through their own struggles.
Oh, interesting. So, is that what happened with Dr. Eade?
Yeah, so in her 40s, she was dealing with all sorts of issues: chronic fatigue, IBS, anxiety, depression.
Oh, wow, the whole spectrum.
Yeah, pretty much. And she was following all the conventional advice, like all the typical dietary
Right.
recommendations.
So, doing everything by the book.
Exactly. But she still felt terrible.
I can only imagine how frustrating that would be. Like, what do you do when you're doing everything right but still feeling awful?
Exactly. And it's a story we hear all the time, People go through tons of tests, everything comes back normal, but they're clearly not well.
So, what did she do?
Well, she just, she started experimenting with her diet, kind of took matters into her own hands.
Okay. And what happened?
It was pretty remarkable, actually. Like, she was able to reverse all of her symptoms.
Really? Just by changing what she ate?
Yeah, it was a complete turnaround. And that experience, that's what led her to, really dive deep into nutrition and eventually to this concept of metabolic psychiatry.
Okay, so I have to admit, I'm not like super familiar with metabolic psychiatry. Can you kind of unpack that a little bit?
Sure. So basically, it challenges that traditional view that
Right.
mental illness is just like a chemical imbalance in the brain.
Right, which is what we always hear. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But metabolic psychiatry is saying, hold on, there's more to it than that.
Like what?
Well, things like brain inflammation, oxidative stress, insulin resistance, these can be major factors.
So it's not just about what's happening in our heads, but like our whole body is playing a role.
Exactly. And that's what's so empowering about it,
Oh, yeah.
Because if we can understand these root causes, then we can actually take control of our mental well-being. It's not just about managing symptoms, it's about addressing those underlying issues.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So one thing that Dr. Ede talks a lot about is the ketogenic diet.
Right.
And I mean, we've all heard of keto,
Right.
right? Especially for weight loss and stuff. But she's saying it's way more than that.
Yeah, it's definitely gaining popularity, but a lot of people don't realize it's been around for a long time.
Oh, really? Like how long?
It was actually developed in 1921 for treating epilepsy in children, like way before we had effective medications for it.
Wow, I had no idea. So how does it actually work? What's going on in the brain on keto?
So basically, it kind of like changes the brain's operating system.
What do you mean?
So instead of running primarily on glucose from carbohydrates, the brain starts using ketones for fuel. It's a pretty fundamental shift.
Okay, so like a quick refresher. What exactly are ketones again, and why are they so good for the brain?
So ketones, they're these molecules your liver produces when you drastically reduce your carb intake.
Right, okay.
And they're like this super efficient, clean burning fuel for the brain, way better than glucose.
So it's like upgrading to premium fuel for your brain.
Exactly. And they do some pretty amazing things for brain health. For one thing, they reduce inflammation.
And inflammation is linked to like pretty much every health problem these days, right?
It's a major player in a lot of mental health conditions, for sure.
So how do ketones actually reduce inflammation in the brain? Like, what's the mechanism there?
It's kind of complicated, but basically they influence these different signaling pathways at a molecular level, the ones that are involved in the inflammatory process.
So it's not just about like avoiding inflammatory foods. It's about giving your body the tools to fight it internally.
Exactly. And beyond that, ketones also help fight oxidative stress.
Okay, reminder, what exactly is oxidative stress?
Think of it like damage to your cells caused by these unstable molecules called free radicals.
Okay.
It's like rust on a car.
Yep.
Those free radicals are bouncing around causing damage.
Sure.
But ketones, they act like antioxidants and they help neutralize those free radicals.
Oh, I see. So they're like little protectors for our cells.
Yep, exactly. And then there's a third major benefit. Ketones improve insulin sensitivity.
Insulin, that's the hormone that regulates blood sugar, right? But how does that tie into brain health?
Well, when your cells become resistant to insulin, it messes up energy production everywhere in your body, including your brain.
So it's like your cells aren't getting the fuel they need,
Mm.
even if you're eating enough.
Exactly. But ketones can help improve that sensitivity, and then your cells can use glucose more effectively, which is, essential for good brain function.
So we're talking like a triple whammy of benefits here.
Yeah.
Reduced inflammation, fighting oxidative stress, and better insulin sensitivity.
It's pretty impressive.
No wonder Dr. Eid is such a big proponent of the ketogenic diet. But,
Yeah.
I mean, is there any, like, real-world evidence to support these claims?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of research out there. One study that really stands out, though, is one that Dr. E did with her colleague, Dr. Alberdena, in France.
Okay, what do they do?
They worked with 31 patients, all had serious mental health conditions, bipolar disorder,
Yeah.
major depression, schizophrenia.
Oh, so these are, like, not easy cases.
No, these were people who hadn't responded to conventional treatments like therapy, medication, even hospitalization.
So they were really struggling.
Yes, definitely. So Dr. Eid and Dr. Dina, they put them on a very strict ketogenic diet, like under medical supervision in a hospital setting.
Okay, yeah.
The results were amazing. 43% of the patients achieved complete remission.
Wait, 43% went into remission? Like, their mental illness was gone?
That's right. And 64% were able to reduce their psychiatric medication.
Seriously. I mean, you never hear about results like that in psychiatry. It's incredible. I've tried keto myself mainly for focus and body composition,
Uh-huh.
and I did feel the benefits. But I have to be honest, it's tough to stick with it long term.
Yeah, I hear you. It's tough to stick with any kind of restrictive diet. But with keto, what's interesting is it actually helps stabilize your appetite hormones over time.
Really. So it gets easier.
It can. It's like when you're constantly spiking your blood sugar with carbs, your body's on this roller coaster. You're just craving more and more. But keto, it kind of breaks that cycle. So you end up having more stable energy and fewer cravings.
That makes sense. One thing I've been wondering about lately is ADHD. It seems like there's so many kids being diagnosed with ADHD these days.
Yeah, it's definitely on the rise.
Do you think there could be a connection between, like, diet and ADHD?
Well, there's some evidence out there. Back in the 80s and 90s, even the early 2000s, there were all these studies in Europe.
Yep.
They put kids with ADHD, even some pretty severe cases, on these special diets. They called them few foods diets.
Few foods, what does that mean?
Basically, they eliminate common allergens and
Mhm.
focus on just a handful of whole foods. So, like chicken, lamb, fruits, veggies, that kind of thing.
Okay, and what happened?
Well, they found that something like 62% to 82% of the kids improved, like significantly. And some even saw like a 70% cure rate just within weeks of changing their diet.
Wow, that's amazing. So why aren't we hearing more about this? Like, why aren't dietary interventions more common for ADHD?
That's a great question. And honestly, I don't have a good answer. I mean, there are organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics that say there isn't enough evidence to support it.
But with results like that.
I know it's hard to ignore, especially when you consider the potential side effects of some ADHD medications.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of amazing transformations, Dr. E talks about this patient she had named Carl. He had lifelong depression and anxiety.
Oh, yeah. Carl's story is pretty incredible.
What happened with him?
So he tried everything, therapy, meds, exercise, but nothing really worked for him.
So did he try keto too?
No, actually, he ended up on the carnivore diet. He read about it online and decided to give it a shot. He was, kind of desperate at that point.
The carnivore diet, you mean like all meat all the time?
Yeah, pretty much. No plants, no dairy, just meat.
Wow, that's intense. So what happened?
Well, within weeks, his anxiety and depression were completely gone.
Completely gone. Are you serious? Just like that. I mean, it's just one case, right? But still, it makes you wonder.
It definitely raises some questions. And it highlights the importance of, keeping an open mind when it comes to nutrition. What works for one person might not work for another.
So it's about finding what works for you, not following a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly.
So this carnivore diet, even if it did work for Carl, it still sounds kind of scary to me.
Yeah.
What about things like nutritional deficiencies and fiber? Don't we need those things?
Well, those are common concerns, and it's definitely important to be careful with any extreme diet. But it's interesting to see what Dr. Eid has to say about those issues. So when it comes to like nutritional deficiencies, meat, seafood, poultry, they actually have all the essential nutrients we need.
Really? Even like vitamin C. I thought you needed fruits and veggies for that.
That's what most people think, yeah. But meat actually has small amounts of vitamin C, and our bodies are really good at like recycling it. So as long as you're eating a variety of animal products, you should be fine.
Huh, interesting. Okay, so what about fiber? That seems to be the big concern with these meat-heavy diets.
Yeah, fiber gets a lot of attention, but here's the thing. It's not actually a nutrient, like we can't digest it.
Right.
And while it can be helpful for some things, like regulating blood sugar, bowel movements, that kind of stuff, I think its role in digestion and gut health is often overblown.
Okay, so maybe fiber isn't like the magical cure-all we've been told it is.
Right. And, people always say you need fiber to, like, feed the good bacteria in your gut.
Yeah, that's what I've always heard.
But there's actually research showing that ketones, they can provide a lot of the same benefits as butyrate, which is a short-chain fatty acid. It's produced when fiber ferments in the gut.
Okay, I'm following.
So ketones can actually fuel the cells that line your intestines, and that promotes gut health.
So it's like if you're on keto, your body is making its own internal fiber in the form of ketones.
That's a good way to put it. Of course, we need more research, especially on the long-term effects of a carnivore diet. But it's definitely, it's interesting stuff.
It really is. It just blows my mind to think that, like, what we eat can have such a huge impact on our mental health.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff.
When you were talking about Carl earlier and how he found relief from the carnivore diet,
Yeah.
it just really highlights, like, how important it is to be open-minded when it comes to nutrition.
Absolutely. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. What works for one person might not work for another.
Right. It's about finding what works for you.
Exactly. And personalized nutrition is key. We've talked about some basic principles that apply to everyone: nourishing your body, protecting your brain, making sure you have clean energy.
Right.
But how you achieve those things, that's where the personalization comes in. Your metabolic health, food sensitivities, what your goals are, what you like to eat, all of that matters.
It's like finding the right puzzle pieces
Yeah.
for your own unique picture.
Exactly. And it's really helpful to work with, qualified healthcare professionals, like a registered dietitian or a doctor who specializes in nutrition. They can help you make those choices safely.
That makes a lot of sense. We've covered a lot of ground today, from like the basics of metabolic psychiatry to the potential benefits of keto, and even, Carl's experience with the carnivore diet. It's really got me thinking about how I can, like, apply some of this stuff to my own life.
Yeah, it's been a great discussion. I hope our listeners are feeling, inspired by the possibilities.
Me too. It's just mind-blowing to think that something as simple as food can have such a profound impact on our mental health.
It really can. And the exciting thing is we have more control over our well-being than we often realize.
Right. It's not about being perfect. It's about making, informed choices.
Exactly. Food isn't a magic bullet, but it's a powerful tool. We can use it to support our brain health.
I love that. So before we wrap up, I want to remind everyone about Dr. Ead's book, Hope is on the Menu.
It's such a great resource.
It really is. And I think it's a must-read for anyone who wants to, really dive deep into this topic.
Absolutely.
All right, so to leave you with a final thought-provoking question. If food can have such a powerful impact on our mental health, what small change can you make today to nourish your brain?
That's a great question to ponder. It could be as simple as, swapping out that sugary breakfast for something with more protein.
Yeah, or adding some healthy fats to your meals.
Exactly. Or maybe trying that new recipe you've been wanting to make, the one with all the brain-boosting veggies.
One thing that really stuck with me from Dr. Ead's work is this idea that we've come to expect so little from our mental health.
It's true.
We just kind of accept things like brain fog, anxiety, low energy. Like, it's just normal to feel that way.
Yeah, we often underestimate how good we can actually feel.
And the thing is, we actually have more control than we think.
Yeah, for sure.
Food isn't like a magic solution or anything, but it's definitely something we can use to help our brains.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest takeaway here is like, don't be afraid to experiment. It's not about restricting yourself or depriving yourself. It's about making good choices that, actually nourish your brain.
Yeah, I like that. It's about working with our bodies.
Exactly.
Not against them.
Right.
And even small changes, those can add up over time.
Oh, for sure. Consistency is key, like with anything.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into food and the brain. What about you? Feeling inspired?
Definitely. It's been so interesting talking about all of this.
Yeah, me too. It's incredible to think that something as simple as food can, have such a big impact on our mental health.
It really is. And the great thing is we have more power than we think, to take control of our well-being.
I completely agree. So a huge thank you to all of you listening out there. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive, and we can't wait to have you back for the next one.
See you next time.